So to realize that it was that bad, I had to face the weight of just what had happened to me, what had happened to us. So at that point, I started asking every question. I wanted to know details. I wanted to see pictures, and so that was the first time I saw the pictures of the plane and how it like was just completely destroyed. Like I thought before I saw the pictures that it just like maybe split in half, crash landed, but it like literally it like landed and exploded and like smashed to pieces. So like I also was faced with the miracle of my life and the other lady who survived. The fact that two people came out of this um with like air in their lungs, like alive. It just I was awed by that fact.
All right, so Keshi, like we were talking offline before we started this interview, and I proposed something to you. And I feel like we have to have this open discussion with everybody that listens to the Rebirth podcast. So I proposed, just for the listener, I proposed to Keshi. I was like, why don't we start like a little band, like a little group? She's the singer, I'm the dancer. We start a tour. And this is literally what she said to me. She says, I'll think about it. Now, I was like, wait a
Come
minute, what do you
on,
mean you'll
that's a
think
good.
about
It's
it?
a
Like, I
good
thought it was just an
response.
automatic yes. I thought it was a great idea, but you're like, I'm gonna think about it.
Look, it's
Come
a good
on.
response. It can go either way. Like it's 50-50. I just gotta
I
go,
don't
talk
play
to my
that game. I don't like the
people.
50-50. I need more like a 60-40 at least. 60-40. At 60-40, I can walk away with like, okay, she's gonna think about it. See, I'm still not getting the 60-40.
Oh my god.
Gosh.
You get it's
All
okay.
right.
It's okay. You get like a let's see. You get like a cuz I'm playing it around in my head. I'm seeing how it's going to look. It might work something out. You never know. You
All
never
right.
know.
This is
Let's
what
say let's say
I think.
70-30.
Woo!
I'll be
That's
even
all right.
nicer.
I'm
Yeah.
going to stop talking
70-30.
right now because that's more than what I could have anticipated. So I'm just going to stop right there. Because I thought for a second I thought what I was going to have to do was maybe do like a little bit of like an audition video,
Like an audition.
like playing one of
That's
your
gonna
songs.
don't
Like,
rule that out. Don't rule that out. We're gonna get to that.
oh, dang.
I gotta
Well,
see
you
what
know
you're made
what?
of.
Listen, I get it. You always got to keep proving yourself in life, and I totally respect that. I can't cramp your style. But listen, you and I have sort of run in the same circle for years, and
True.
never have had the opportunity to, have sit down and have a conversation about life and about our
Mhm.
experiences and what you've learned and what I've learned, et cetera. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to jump on the Rebirth podcast and, talk about life.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for inviting me. I'm honored.
Yeah, well, listen, I want to start with something fun and light. I mean, there's a lot to unpack and a lot to uncover in your story. And,
Mhm.
for the listener right now that is not familiar with your story or your journey, I encourage you to go and you literally watch the video of her on America's Got Talent. If you are not crying, like not even at the end, at the middle of her singing, then we gotta recheck the heartbeat, because it is one of the most inspiring and beautiful things that I have personally witnessed. And I'm not just saying it because I too am a burn survivor, right? But you love to sing, you have an amazing voice. When did
Thank
you
you.
start singing?
Singing is something that I've always done, but not in the capacity that I do it in now. Before the
Mm,
accident, it was just fun. And as I got older, my voice did get better. As a teenager, I would sing a lot for like my friends and my family. That's something I've always done and has always brought me joy,
mhm,
but it was never something I planned to like pursue professionally. It was never going to be more than
mhm,
a hobby. um and then the accident happened and my voice did actually like go through a significant change due to the accident that was kind of unprecedented. Like no one really expected that to happen and no one really could explain why it happened, but something changed for sure. And I
mhm,
started singing even more. Music became like almost like therapy. It became an escape from everything that was going on because it was one thing I
mhm.
could do that didn't hurt. And so yeah,
Right.
that's what music became for me, and then I just kept on singing, and yeah.
At what point did that evolve to where it inspired you to try out for America's Got Talent? Because that, I mean, to do it on a stage in front of your friends and family, right? That's, I mean, all of us do it. And most of us can't sing. I mean, and our family and our friends are still supportive and they just let us do our thing. But
Exactly,
you
that's
actually
true.
can blow. You got vocals. At what point, because I know as a burn survivor, when you're going through a shift in your identity and understanding who
Mhm,
you are, what you
mhm,
are, and where that fits in into this world that we live in that is
mhm,
incredibly visual and judgmental. At what point did you decide, AGT, that's where I'm supposed to be, and I'm going to try out and see what happens?
Well, I guess it's important to know that, like, I actually never tried out, like, voluntarily tried out for the show. One of my best friends signed me up without telling me, and that's pretty much how
Oh,
I ended up on their radar. So she kind of took matters into her own hands and took that step for me that I never would have taken by myself. Now, as for where I was
wow.
as a person and identity-wise, that was something that I had kind of already figured out a while before I ever encountered the show. I was already in a place where I was comfortable with myself and understood certain things about myself. With my voice, I was still very sensitive about it. I think that would be the only part of my life that I had any kind of vulnerability in because, it's something that was
Mm,
very precious to me and that I had never really shared with the public before. So the idea of getting like public judgment regarding my voice was something I was new to. So I kept that part
right.
of me very personal. But then when my friend did that, because I sing to my friends and family, and she's always known I love to sing, so she put me out there and was like, "Hey, you can make something of this." So I guess the defining moment was when I decided to go through with it. After she put me out there and they reached back out to me, I had many opportunities to say I don't want to go further than this. I don't want to do this. I feel uncomfortable, or I just don't think I'm ready for this kind of thing. But I ignored
Mhm.
all those, like, moments, and I decided to just push through and just see what happens. And of course, I'm extremely grateful that I did. So yeah, that's pretty much how that
That's,
happened.
well, I was going to ask you, my follow-up question was going to be, is that person still
Yeah.
your best friend?
Of course, she is my best friend, so I mean, you have to have people in your life that know you like that, and
For
know that they're
sure.
not overstepping, and even when they do, it's for your own sake, and I mean, she single-handedly, changed my life pretty much. So, yeah, what's there to be mad about?
Yeah. No, you're right. We need people like that. We need people that see the potential in
Mhm.
us and aren't afraid to actually
Exactly.
be the ones to say, I'm actually going to pull the trigger because you're probably not going to do it yourself. And,
Exactly.
but at the end of the day, right? Like, you know this better than most. You can sit here and,
That's
and, and
true.
try to encourage someone to do something and suggest that they should do it, but it's up to the person. So for you to accept the call
Exactly.
and to say, all right, cool, like let's see where this goes. Before we get into that audition and that moment, right? Being in front of the
Mm,
judges, knowing that you're in front of millions of people. You already mentioned a couple of times, and for the listener, you mentioned the accident. And I want to
mm,
be able to go
mm,
back a little bit, if I may, and just kind of talk about it, just kind of give the listener a little bit of context right now. You were involved in a plane crash when you were 16 years old. Now, you're from Nigeria. That's where the accident took place. And out of the
mhm.
109 people on the plane, there were only two survivors, you being one of them. Talk to us about that
Correct.
day, that experience.
Yeah.
And I can only
Mm,
imagine, I know you had a lot of people that you knew that were on the plane with you. What was that
mhm,
recovery
mhm,
like, not just from a physical standpoint, Kesh, but from a mental and emotional standpoint? Because I can only imagine
mm,
being one of the two survivors. Did you live with guilt? Did you have survivor's guilt? Did
mm,
that play a role in your
mhm,
recovery? So
mhm.
break it down for us.
All right. So yeah, the accident, like you said, happened in Nigeria when I was 16 years old, right? And it was a Saturday. I remember it was a very normal day. There was nothing unusual
Mm,
that happened that day. It was actually the last day of school. I went to a boarding high school, and it was the last day. So that was the day everyone was leaving campus and going home for Christmas. And
mm,
so it was myself and 60 other kids from my school. We lived in the same area in the east of Nigeria. So we would typically fly like home together in the same plane or drive on the same bus, whatever. So there was nothing unusual that happened that day. It wasn't unusual that we were on the plane that day. The weather was not weird leaving the place where my school was, which is Abuja. And everything was just pretty average, nothing to indicate what was about to happen. And so I remember that day we boarded the plane took off, and everything was still normal. Nothing happened, nothing weird happened during the like majority of the flight. And then about like maybe 15 to 20 minutes um left in the flight when the pilot makes the announcement that we would be descending into the airport soon, all that stuff that they do over the intercom. That was when
Mhm.
things started to get weird. Now, I was in an aisle seat, so I couldn't see out the window. I couldn't see much. I usually prefer a window. So I remember I was actually gonna get home and like complain to my mom for not booking me a window seat because that's what she usually books. And I remember just kind of being upset about that in the beginning of the flight, but like just forgetting about it. But I remember I was in an aisle seat, and one of my closest friends was in the aisle seat next to mine. And so during the flight, I would talk to her a little bit, but we slept for most of it. Um, and then that was when the turbulence started. And it was still just, I mean, you fly, turbulence happens, it's regular, nothing weird. But then it started to get like really bad, like really like dramatic, like exaggeratedly bad. Like, and I remember people were just like quiet. We didn't really, because you never want to say anything, but I could feel like the tension in the air at that point. Because it was like, I
Yeah.
mean, what, this is persisting, like what is going on? And then the lady at the back of the plane kind of just screamed, like, "Is this plane trying to land?" Like something like that. And I just remember her voice just like triggered chaos. Not anyone running around in the plane or anything, but just people screaming, shouting for God, shouting Jesus, just
Oh,
like,
wow.
yelling and like in shock at what was happening. And I remember just sitting there, like me personally, I was just in shock. Like I did not understand what was going on. It was like a movie. It was like something you see on TV happening to someone else, like you never imagine would happen to you because it's like it's a plane. Like you never think the worst is gonna happen to a plane, much less one you're on. So I was just shell shocked and quiet and just kind of staring. And I remember turned to my friend and she was looking like her eyes were huge and she's looking at me like, what is going on? What do we do? What is this? And I remember we held hands and I was like, maybe we should pray. And that's the last thing I said to her, said period, before there was this loud like metal scraping against metal, like nails on chalkboard, like inside my brain. And I blacked out at that point. Like all I remember after that is just blackness. And my next vivid memory after that is opening my eyes, and I was in a hospital in South Africa 5 weeks later, waking up from a coma. But I did after I woke up, I did remember like flashes of moments that I thought were dreams, but like what actually things that happened. My mom confirmed that they happened. One of them being me lying on a gurney and like people hovering over me and me kind of like my hand like stretched out in the air looking. I was like looking at my hand and like my skin was just like hanging off my hand and like in like sheets, just like in
Oh
strings.
my God.
And I remember just like in awe of like just I couldn't feel anything. All my nerves were shot.
Right.
So I just remember looking like turning my hand back and forth and just seeing marveling out like why was my skin doing that? And I also remember like screaming about pressure, like insane pressure in my arms. Which also happened, my mom said, because I swelled up like 3 times my size because of the intense burns. Um and yeah, so after I opened my eyes in South Africa, that was when my journey began officially as a burn survivor. I actually opened my eyes in South Africa because the night after the plane crash happened, I had to be flown to South Africa to receive treatment because Nigeria, we did not have the level of care necessary for the level of burns that I sustained. I had third-degree burns
Wow.
over 65% of my body. So we just could not handle that kind of level of injury. So they flew me to the closest place that could, and that was Johannesburg, Mill Park Hospital. So yeah, my journey started there, and of course, I mean, hardest time of my life. Like, I mean, JR, you definitely would understand that. Like, there's nothing more difficult than overcoming just the beginning of um like severe burn injuries, and just that time when everything is all about keeping you alive. Trying to make sure you stay alive for that beginning part of the treatment, and then covering you up, covering up all the areas, the large surface areas that were the most affected by whatever the accident was. And so for me, that was like my first 3 months in South Africa, covering me up. I call it my patchwork era because that was just basically when they put me back together. They used skin that didn't burn to cover everything else up. So all the major areas of my body that have like the biggest grafts, that was all South Africa. That's where they saved my life, literally. My legs, my
Wow.
arms, my back, my tummy, my face. And yeah, that was what I spent the first 3 months doing. Now, also at that time, I did not know the full um, extent of the accident. I thought for the first 3 months that everyone else was alive, if I was alive. I
Oh,
I didn't
wow.
really yeah, so I just believed that, if someone survived a plane crash, then that means it was not that serious. That means everyone else was maybe I believe that I got the worst of the injuries, and that everyone else was just like, also healing, also okay. I thought my friends were back in school. Like I had no
Oh,
idea
wow.
until about 4 months in what
Did you
really
ask
happened, and
anybody?
the hospital did it that way. Of course, I asked, like, the better I got, the more interested I became and more curious in what had happened, and they just gave me, very, like, ambiguous responses, but ultimately ensuring that I understood that, I that everyone else was okay, that they were okay,
Mhm.
and they had to do that, I guess, to protect my psychological and mental well-being because they had to make sure I was in a place where I could handle that kind of news without it affecting my physical well-being, so that took 4
Wow.
months before they told me the truth, and they had to obviously they had to tell me eventually. My mom, I know it killed her to probably like have to like lie to me and like keep the truth from me, but I mean, I know it was necessary at the time to handle things that way. Because I don't know how I'd have reacted if they told me anytime before, honestly. But yeah, I mean, that was the state of mind I
Yeah.
was in when they told me the truth. And of course, it was really just it was the worst. It was really hard to contemplate because I couldn't understand. Like up until that point, I had believed that the accident was not so bad that it would take life. So to realize that it was that bad, I had to face the weight of just what had happened to me, what had happened to us. So at that point, I started asking every question. I wanted to know details. I wanted to see pictures, and so that was the first time I saw the pictures of the plane and how it like was just completely destroyed. Like I thought before I saw the pictures that it just like maybe split in half, crash landed, but it like literally it like landed and exploded and like smashed to pieces. So like I
Oh my
also was
god.
faced with the miracle of my life and the other lady who survived. The fact that two people came out of this um with like air in their lungs, like alive. It just it the I was awed by that fact. But even before I got to that point, I was nothing could like overshadow the depression that I felt when I realized that this meant that everyone I knew was gone. And that was I was just like that for like days. I just crying days on end. Just it was really
I
really a
mean, that's a
hard it was a
lot.
hard place to pull myself out of.
Yeah. I mean, I try to put myself. I mean, I was 19 years old, right, when my injury took place. But 19 and 16 are very different. And even though it's only 3 years, there's still a lot of difference in sort of mindset. I mean,
Mindset.
I can't even
Yeah.
imagine being 16 years old and trying to wrap your mind around the idea that one, now you look different, right? Every time you look in the mirror. But then two,
Mm,
everybody that you called, most of the people you called a friend that you went to school with are
mm,
are are not going to be there. And I just think at 16 years old, of course you were depressed. Of course you were broken down. I mean, what listen, I'm sure it's probably still an ongoing process, but in the earlier
mm,
stage of your recovery, I
mhm.
mean, what was the thing that got you through? Because I'm sure that was a daily, practice that you had to work through.
Oh yeah, definitely. I guess in the beginning it was extremely hard for me to connect. um I guess I want to say in the beginning, what I struggled with the most was my concept of God and faith. um
Mm,
I did, I was born into a Christian household, so I knew, what it meant to be a Christian theoretically, and my parents were, my family was. And so by virtue of them being believers, I was. Did I have a relationship with God personally? No. But that was something that I was interested
mm,
in developing after the accident happened, because I got to a place where, let's just say, medication could only do so much. There were some parts of me that medication could not penetrate, and I was fast learning that it would be possible for me to reach those parts of me and heal those parts of me if I tried to understand, God and what role I wanted him to play in my life. So
mhm.
I was in a good place with that, understanding him. And my mom would read the Bible to me. I would ask so many questions, like genuinely interested in understanding that this God was a good being. He was a good being that wanted the best for his people and his children and the people that he created and all that. And then I find out that, everyone was gone. And it was just like hard to reconcile this good God I'd been learning about with, like, allowing so many kids to die at the
Yeah,
same time in, like, something as horrific as a plane crash. I just didn't understand how someone who's supposed to be all powerful, all knowing, and merciful would allow that to happen, like, to children, because there were other people on the plane, but there were 60 kids. Like, it just, and so I guess for me, it wasn't I don't know how you would call it, define it. It wasn't survivor's guilt, because one thing I never felt, and I can say with confidence, and I'm grateful for, was um guilty for being alive. That was not something I
mm,
ever felt, because I knew that, like, it was a miracle that I was alive. It was a miracle that the other lady was alive. So I never felt like, why me? Like, why, I what I've so it was never survivor's guilt in that like definition of the word or the phrase.
mhm,
But what I struggled with was, if I was alive, if somebody could survive this, why not everyone? Like, I didn't understand why 2 out of 109 would survive. Like, if 2 could survive, then 109 could survive. Like, so I didn't
right.
understand, like, what the point would be in just saving 2, and even more so, like, just 2 randoms as far as I was concerned, because, like, I was one person from my school and the other lady was just another lady on the plane. So it wasn't even like, 2 students or 2, like, people that knew each other. Like, it was just like, it just didn't seem, there was no rhyme or reason. And so for me, that was what I struggled with a lot. Yes, I'm happy I'm alive, but, like, why couldn't everyone else be alive? If
Right.
there's a plane crash, people usually all go, like, everyone usually dies. So, like, it's just like, so I didn't understand that. And so I struggled with that a lot. And this was where I started asking my mom so many questions and just trying to understand what role, like, it was important for me to understand what role I wanted the accident to play in my life, what role I wanted the lives that were lost to play in my life, what role that I wanted my burns and my scars to play in my life. I had to decide before I got out of the hospital what role these things were going to play, and how I was going to what I was going to how I was going to choose to react to these things that had already happened,
Mhm,
that I could not control or do anything about. And my mom, we talk a lot, and she was really amazing. And one thing that she said that really struck me was that, Kechi, the truth is that being a Christian, being a believer, it does not exempt you from experiencing bad things. Just because you believe in God does not mean that bad things will no longer happen to you. It doesn't, like,
mhm,
that's not what, like, everyone that believes in him, we don't all suddenly just have, like, happy-go-lucky lives. That's not how it works, and that's not the point of, like, believing that, so that you can avoid bad things. By virtue of living in this world, you are going to experience bad things, but the difference that your faith would make, if you let it, is having a place to go to when those bad things happen. You can choose to see
mm.
God as your place of solace, as the place that you retreat to for healing from whatever it is that you go through in life. That's what he's there for. That's what he can represent for you if you want. And that
Oh, I
was
love that.
extremely eye-opening for me. That was just like it it opened up so many different other concepts to me. Like if God could
Yeah.
be my resting place where when I'm feeling weak or vulnerable or sad or in a dark place, then maybe I could find a way to translate that to the lives of all those that were gone. Maybe I can find a way to draw strength from their memories too. And so I made
Mm.
that connection, and somehow that gave me like a purpose, I suppose. It became part of my purpose to live for them.
That's so, I mean, incredible that your mother would share that because I experience, in my life, 38 years old. I mean, I've been around a lot of people, as I'm sure you have as well,
Hmm.
that do have a relationship with God, do have a relationship with faith, and yet they believe that, like you said, by them being believers and praying or going to church, that there's automatically this shield that's around them and the people and that they love, that prevents them from
Hmm.
experiencing any sort of trauma or tragedy. And the
Life.
reality is, faith is really deeply embedded in this concept of, okay, we're going to test how much you trust me. We're going to test how much you believe in me, that I will guide you through this traumatic
That is
experience,
so
this event
true.
that is happening in your life. Not that, like your mother said so eloquently and beautifully, that you're not going to experience it. No, you're going to experience things because life is
Hmm.
life, and that's the point of
That's
life.
life.
You
Yeah.
have to experience some things. It's how you go through it. And
Yes.
it's your mom sounds like an incredible individual, as you already alluded to. But she wrote a book, in
Yes, she did.
2014. Is that right? Was it
Hmm.
2014?
Hmm. Yeah, 2014.
Refined for Rebirth. Now, the name of this
Yes.
podcast is Rebirth, so it's kind of like a perfect connection
Yes.
here, right?
I know.
Um,
I thought that was
which
very cool.
which the book that she released in 2014 was a diary of the first few months of your
Hmm.
life after the injury, which I love because I had an opportunity, and I know you recovered, or you spent some time recovering at Shriners
Hmm.
Hospital in Galveston, Texas,
Yes, we
which is
did.
an
Hmm.
incredible facility. I had the
Hmm.
opportunity in 2014. I went to Shriners on Christmas Day, and I remember calling
Oh wow.
the hospital and saying, "Hey, I want to come. I want to visit, because I know it's Christmas, and what can I bring the patients?" And they pretty much flat out told me the patients, they're good, right? Like, they roll out the red carpet for the patients. And I said, "Okay, well, what do the family members have? What do the caregivers have?" And they said,
Hmm.
"Well, they don't really
Caregivers.
have a lot." So then what I did is
Mm.
I went to the store and I bought, for every person that I was on the burn ward, I bought a lot of different stuff, like, gift cards and hygiene stuff. But then I
Uh-huh.
also bought a notebook
Yeah.
and pens. And when I showed up and I was giving this to, either the parents, the spouses, whomever it was there being a caregiver,
Hmm.
I encouraged them to write. I encouraged them to document whatever they were feeling, whatever they were experiencing,
Hmm.
because too many people forget about what your loved ones go through. And so I love that your
Yeah.
mother, on her, I mean, she just said, "I'm just going to write." And so my question was, through her
Hmm.
writings, through her little diary that she kept, were there
Hmm.
some things that you discovered when you finally read this stuff that you had no idea
Hmm.
about, that you were going through, or experiencing?
Heck yeah, a lot, definitely. I mean, for the most part, I knew a lot, but it's interesting seeing myself from her perspective at that time. And it's a little daunting, honestly, because a lot of times when I like reading it as an adult right now, someone who like so many years have passed since the incident, reading it as I am and reading about my 16-year-old self, it's extremely weird because there's a weird, I don't want to say disconnect, but because of how far I've gone in my journey, it's almost like I'm reading something that happened to another person. I just cannot believe
Oh,
that
I
something
feel the
so
same way.
intense happened to someone. It's just like it's crazy. It's like, who is that? How did
Yeah.
she even like? And
Yeah.
I'm so funny because I think with my brain right now and how I am right now, I wonder if, as I am going through something like that, if I would even react and be the way I was in the book to the things that happened to me then. I wonder if I would, as I am now, be equipped to deal with the stuff that happened to that catchy. Because
Oh.
I really read it and I'm just like, I don't know how I was able to just like go through this and somehow come out more or less whole, especially more importantly mentally and emotionally. And I, as I keep reading, I know I can see that I can attribute that to the people that were around me. It wasn't really
Hmm.
it wasn't something I did by myself, but I do see that my personality played a large role in that. But the people I had around me, the kind of energy I had around me at that most critical time in my life, played such a big role in making sure that I came out of this with the right kind of mindset. Understanding the things that are
Hmm.
important and understanding the things that are, kind of not as significant. So one the
Yeah.
main thing being my appearance. I think the way that I was treated then, the way I was viewed, and the way that I was, I think these things all came together to make sure that I understood that of all things out of this whole situation, how I look, because of the accident and the changes that I've experienced because of that physically really, really had to play a secondary role to my healing in general in every other way. Because if I
Yeah.
focused on that part of things, then I believe it was pretty clear that if you focus on that during that beginning stage, it's going to have the potential to just overtake every other kind of healing. Your focus would be strictly on that physical part, and so therefore it would stunt the growth of other places, because
Hmm.
that's how people we're visual, and we're going to get onto the world that is very judgmental, very opinionated, and full of people who will want to tell you how to feel about yourself. So
Yep.
if you let that be the most important part of you, then you are going to be subject to a lot of identity crises as you get back out there in the world. And I did not want that, for myself, and neither did the people around me. So I feel like reading the book, I think that was the main thing that jumped out to me, is just the lack of focus on my physical and on my appearance. No one really brought it up. No one really, not that they were trying to avoid it. It was just like, hey, you get better, whatever. And
Yeah.
that blasé attitude towards that, helped reinforce the fact that which I already believe, but now I believe even more that it's great that I'm alive, and let's really just like focus on that. To be honest, everything else can come later. So
Yeah.
so that I think that was the coolest thing.
That's such a mature mindset. I mean, I know obviously your mother and other people in your life contributed to
Mm,
you
they did,
developing that
yeah.
mindset. However, at 16 years old, to sit here and sort of nod your head to everybody and say,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, if that's the way we got to look at it, that's the way we got to look at it.
Yeah.
Because
I'm not
I
gonna lie,
mean,
it was
there's, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. So I was gonna say, I'm not gonna lie, it was like it's kind of weird to, because at that point in my life, as a 16-year-old teenager, like I was very pretty and I was aware of how pretty I was, and I was very
Yeah.
self-involved. I guess like any other teenager, I liked looking nice. I liked how I looked. I was not someone who really grew up with a lot of um not self-esteem. I never really struggled with that, because I really
Hmm.
like believed that I was like very attractive, and just like I was happy with how I looked. So like
Yeah.
that was where I was in my head, and I believe this primarily because of what my parents would tell me growing up. So I just had this like confidence about like like if I'm going to have problems, it's not going to be because of my face or how I look. I know that one for sure. That was my mentality. So when this happened, I definitely thought like, okay, for someone who cares so much about her physical appearance, like how is this going to affect my personality? Like, how am I going to change? Like, I was very concerned. This is before I saw my reflection. I was just very
Yeah.
concerned about how I was going to take this. Like, I was like, oh my God, like, I know how I am. And if I see me look so different, how am I going to, am I going to be able to survive? Like, how am I going to, what's going to happen? And of course, my mom and my dad were extremely worried about this too, because they know their daughter and how much
Right.
she likes to look nice. So it's just like, yeah, so we were very concerned. And I remember when I finally asked to see myself, my mindset, like, and I read it in the book, it was just like, hey, look, let's just see this and get it over with. And if it's really bad, and I'm going to start feeling the type of way, let's start whatever therapy I need to start. Let's start getting this going. Like, I cannot stay in that funk. I can't stay there. So that was kind of like how I saw it. So when I saw my reflection for the first time, I remember in the book, I read that part, and my mom didn't really know what I was thinking then, because all I said was, after I looked at my reflection, like left, right, up, down, I was like, Mom, I'm still kind of looking okay. Like, it's not as bad as I thought. And so she just started like crying. But I remember in my head, what I was thinking was, okay, wow, this is actually not. because I in my head I thought like, oh my god, because I could see the bandages and stuff from my like all through my body. So in my mind I was like, oh my god, do I even have like, where are my eyes? Like, do I even have eyes anymore? Like, do I even have a
Right.
nose? Like, do I have lips? Like, do I have any
Yeah.
features? So when I looked and I saw I had those things, it was like, so just my skin then. Okay. Wow. I really thought it was going to be very, very bad. So to me, it was like what I saw was like an upgrade to what I imagined, basically.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, that's how I saw that. And yeah, you can imagine how relieved I was to realize that like, okay, so if I can still
Listen,
feel like I'm myself, even though I don't look like me, then look, that means I can just
listen,
keep being me.
if someone's listening right now that spends so much time putting emphasis on their appearance and everything, and you're not inspired or incorporating the sort of a different approach and mindset about looks and appearance and your own self-esteem, like if what you just said didn't do anything to you, then you might have to go back and play this last 90 seconds, because that is so beautiful and powerful. And I think that that is one of the things that is so universal and relatable by so many people. Now I want to pivot real quick and get back to this music element, because I know obviously you talked about singing for a very long time. Is something that really played a role in your life ever since you
Oh
were
yeah.
young. But what role did music play in your recovery?
That was that was like the most important role, I want to say, because music, was something that it didn't matter what state of like physical state I was in. It didn't matter how much pain I was in. It didn't matter whether I was lying down, I couldn't move, I could sing. That's something
Mm,
that like the accident did not take away from me, and in fact somehow enhanced. And once we realized that that was something that had happened, my mom and I and my family, we just kind of I just ran with it, and became this person that just could not like go a few minutes without listening to something that like an artist that she loved, or without belting some note or the other, and it was fun, just pure and simple fun. And that was something I was missing in my life at that time, like heavily. My life was so serious now, so many things that were life and death, but music was just plain old simple fun. And I just I was happy that I had that still in something. So after South Africa, when I moved to America with my family and started being a patient at Shriners, that was when music became a part of my therapy, like actual
mhm.
official therapy, because I would have physical therapy and then I have music therapy. And what was cool was that before I became part of music therapy in Shriners, it was actually something they only offered to their younger patients. It was something that they only had for like the kids, basically. But my
Ah,
physiotherapist saw how much I love to sing. And so she suggested, like, she was like, hey, you might want to look into music therapy, see if it's something that you would like. Best suggestion ever. I mean, once I met, first of all, the music therapist, Christine, we became fast friends. She was amazing. And from there, we just started like playing. She would play any instrument and she could learn songs like that. And like I just looked forward so much to every music therapy session, especially because it came after physical therapy. So, like, I knew that after all this
after
pain,
pain.
I could look forward to something that was fun. Exactly. Exactly. So, it was so wonderful, honestly, having that. And I would always be grateful to Shriners for doing that for me, because it quite frankly healed parts of me that like surgery could not. That's what music did.
Mhm.
And I will never ever forget the fact that Shriners did that for me. I actually had my
That is
first concert
awesome.
in Shriners too for the other kids in the hospital. That was the first time I ever performed, quote unquote, in front of an audience that wasn't just, my family. And it was very nerve wracking, but it was also like my first taste of what it would feel like to, have people cheering as I sang. It was a very cool feeling. And I just kind of kept that, that was like 2009. And I mean, who would have thought, fast forward like what, 8 years, that, I would find myself on like a whole different kind of stage. But
Well,
yeah, that's what music was
it
for
was
me
like
and still
it
is.
was a safe environment for you, right? Like to do it at Shriners, even though yes, it's intimidating to do it in front of people
Yeah.
that you don't
Yeah.
necessarily they don't know you like your family and your friends do, but it's
Mhm.
still a safe environment, right? Like I mean, these are people going through
True.
the same thing as you. You
Mhm.
understand each other. It's equivalent
Yep.
to what I tell people before I got on All My Children, before I got on Dancing with the Stars. I mean,
Mhm.
I was speaking to veterans. I was speaking to other burn survivors. I mean,
Mm.
I was doing work with Shriners, with the Phoenix Society, which I know you as well
Yeah.
have done work with. And
Mhm.
I felt safe. And that in those environments with veterans and burn survivors, they encouraged me to find power in my ability to
Yeah.
communicate in my way, which is
Mhm.
speaking. And so by the time All My Children presented itself, by the time Dancing with the Stars presented
Yeah.
itself, I was like, I'm good. Like I'm confident. Let's
Yeah.
go. Like I don't think you guys understand what I can bring to the table because you're looking at me as a burn victim. Because as
Mhm.
you know, a lot of people look at you and I and everybody in our community and say victim because that's the
Yeah.
terminology. And yet
Mhm.
I'm always correcting people saying, see, that's where you're already behind because you're looking at me as a victim. I'm approaching you as a survivor. So
Period.
get ready because it's
Get
about to
into it.
go down.
I
you
love
know?
it. So true. So, so true.
So I love that, you here you are now. You're on AGT. What is it like to be in front of the Simon Cowell? Like, I mean, listen, there's all the other judges, but Simon
Oh,
has a
yeah.
reputation of being
Yes, he
tough,
does.
strict. He has no heart. He will tell you like it is.
Like
And
it
yet,
is. Yes.
I mean, you did your thing. I mean, what was that experience like?
Honestly, it was extremely nerve-wracking. I mean, this is, like you said, Simon Cowell. I mean, it's so funny because up until the moment I was standing on that X, that very first time, which was also incidentally the first time that as a contestant you encounter the judges. There's no rehearsal
Mhm.
for that. I
Oh
remember
God.
standing there, and that was like my first like that was the moment that the realization hit me for the first time. Even though I'd been talking back and forth with this, with AGT for like months before I got to that point. That was the moment on that stage that I realized, holy crap, I'm going to sing, and these people are going to tell me whether or not I'm good. Like, I'm actually going to get judgment from like a person who
Gosh.
like knows his stuff when it comes to music and voice, like, and
Yeah.
and that's going to be it. Like, if he says it's good, it's good. If he says it's like, this is I've put myself in this position, like, why would I do this, and I had that moment of panic where it was like, why would I subject myself to something so scary? You're not like, you don't do this, Catchy. Like, you're not someone that would just like do things randomly. Like, what the heck, how do we even get here? And so I was panicking, and when they talked to me, my voice came out all squeaky and high, like nothing like I talk. And that's how I know, like, oh yeah, you're really like, you're actually very, very nervous right now. Like, yeah, this is bad. But I remember, like, after I finally sang, seeing their reactions. I mean, honestly, there was really nothing more encouraging than to see
Yeah.
them actually clapping because of my voice, and understanding that, they felt like someone saying that, yeah, like, I have four yeses. Like, it just made me realize that, like, maybe there's something here, you know but then it was
You got a
actually
golden
between this
buzzer.
time after the first audition.
A golden buzzer. You
That
he
was
he said
crazy.
he
It
said
was.
after you were done singing, he said, "I'm sorry, I didn't like it." And of course, for television, everybody's like, and cut to everybody's facial reaction, like, "How
Man,
could he
I was
say something like
so
that?"
I was devastated, honestly. It
Yeah,
was
and here you
crazy.
are standing up there, you're keeping your composure, and I'm sure there's a lot going through your head. And he's like, I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
like it
I
because
was
I
like, "Well,
loved
it's
it.
over. I'm good."
Bam!
It was
He
one of
hits
the
the
coolest moments
button.
in my life. For real, for real.
God.
One of the coolest moments, because like, no preparation for that, like, nothing. You had, like, just no clue what's gonna happen. Like, at that point, before the buzzer, I just remember, like, thinking, "Oh, well, I guess it wasn't good. Like I thought, being your worst critic, like it's just like when someone says something negative, it just confirms what you already believed, like what you already like were scared
Yeah.
about. So I was like, as I
Yeah.
thought, I knew that sucks. Like I knew it. Well, oh well, I'm just glad for the opportunity. I had my thank you speech like ready in my head, like thank you for the chance to be here.
Oh man.
And then in like slow motion, he's moving across like the other judge to like press that buzzer. And I'm just like, what is he about to do? What is going on right now? And then before I can even think, I'm like showered in confetti. And it was just like, this cannot be happening. Is this for real? Like it was
So
the fact
beautiful.
that he did that, like it just really it made me have even more confidence in my voice and what I had to bring to the table, as a singer. And I'll always be grateful to him
That's
for that for
beautiful.
sure. Sam was very nice to me. I'm not gonna lie.
So
He was very kind and yeah, seemed to just believe in me, and that obviously was very validating from someone like him. So yeah.
yeah. So I know since the show, you released a song called "All the Time." You released a song called "All My Love." I know that you're
Oh
working
my
on
love.
your own album. When can
Yes, I
we expect
am.
your music to drop? When is that going to happen?
So there was the album was actually supposed to drop last year, but then COVID happened and put like a delay
Mhm.
on things. So it's actually going to be dropping this fall instead. The songs that I released
Ooh,
prior, the two songs I released are actually off that album, but it's a full-length album of original songs and I am so excited to share even more. I have another single coming out before the album comes out and I'm just really excited to get people to hear, my sound, and the different
yeah,
kind of genres that I'm interested in, and so far it's been a really great response to all the time, especially, and then to all my love with like working with like different other artists. It's always such an honor. So so far I'm extremely grateful for the response I've been getting, and I'm really looking forward to the chance to like perform a lot of these songs, if not all, live, perform it like
yeah,
online, and just to see how people react, see what people think, I that's one
yeah.
thing I love is singing live. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. I can't wait. I'm gonna make sure I'm hitting you up on Instagram and following the
Yes,
journey. And so
everywhere.
that way, once you post that the album is out, to go download it here and there. I'm gonna be one of the first people
Thank
to make
you. You're
sure that
so
I do
sweet.
that and push that out.
Thank
I
you
also
so
want Of
much.
course, I also want to give you an opportunity to highlight the work that you're doing. I know that you're an ambassador for multiple organizations. I know the Weave
Yeah.
movement. I know Shriners.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about some of the advocacy and that important work that you're doing now.
So America's Got Talent gave me so many things, so many opportunities, but the number one thing I think that show gave me was a platform. It helped me
Mm,
to not just create a platform, but expand a platform on which I could build a brand that would be focused on all the things that I'm passionate about. So it's not just about singing, but also about being an ambassador for burn survivors like myself, being a voice
right.
for them in places where they don't have a loud enough voice, and
Mhm,
extending that voice to people that are just basically disenfranchised. Doesn't have to be just burn survivors, but that's my main focus. But also
mhm,
people with disabilities, people that deal with different kinds of physical ailments that a lot of times people think hold them back, and giving them that community of voice as well. So working with Shriners has been really the pinnacle of this ambassadorship, being able to advocate for other burn survivors and also being able to represent what the future can be for other burn survivors. A lot of times when you're in it, you can't really see anything except the surgeries upon surgeries.
mhm,
But I like to be a representation of the fact that there's life after all this trauma. And I feel like
yep,
having this platform is what I have been able to like show people more than anything else. The fact that you can not only, you know, go from victimhood to survival, but you can thrive. You can thrive in life even after everything that you've been through. So I
yeah,
want people to know that. And so it extends to people that also have injuries that you cannot necessarily see with your eyes. They're not so obvious like burns, but like
mhm,
internal pain and trauma that people like hold into like keeping themselves. And then also bullying prevention. That's something that
mhm,
has always been on my heart to fight against, because when we first moved to America, my little sister was she was intensely bullied when we first moved here. And
Oh,
seeing that, growing up and seeing that happen to someone that I love so much made me know that one day, given a chance, I want to advocate against this with kids and teenagers where it's most predominant. So, working with this organization called Be Strong, I mean, it's been really cool because they've allowed me to, be a voice,
yeah.
against bullying prevention. And I feel like, being a burn survivor, it's something I think it's really effective because, people can see I'm someone like me. I can be very easily a target for bullying, but I feel like seeing me be a mouthpiece against something like that, there's a strength in there that I can use for good, and I want to do that. So that's what I do. And then another thing I really love is anything that has to do with kids, encouraging kids to be their best selves, to know what they want as early on as possible, to know who they are as early as possible before going out there and being defined by someone else. So that's how I started working with We, because We is all about empowering the younger generation to do good wherever they can, and giving them a goal. Like, at the end of the day, you get to come to this We Day event where you get to see all your favorite celebrities perform and things like that. And so I love being part of something like that too. So yeah, it's really been amazing the opportunities I've had to work with, like, and also not just Shriners, but other burn survivors and other burn organizations, being able to visit like burn camps and encourage the kids there. Like, I've just really been using myself as a way to inspire people to just believe in life after trauma. I think that's the main part
Yeah.
of my message and my brand. So it's really been it's just everything is a blessing. Every time I'm reached out to by anyone, including you, JR, it's a chance for me to continue to, advocate. And so I'm always grateful.
Well, so happy and honored and proud that one, you've answered all the calls and emails and inquiries to do all this work that you're doing, but then also to have accepted my call to be on the Rebirth podcast and talk
Of
about
course.
your journey. And I want to give you the opportunity to tell the listener right now where they can find you, where they can stay in touch with everything that you have that's upcoming. We didn't even get a chance to talk about your book
Mhm.
that's going to be coming out next year. So guess what? I'm going to
Mhm.
hit you up to come back and we could talk about the book and dive in a little bit deeper
Love
because I
it.
want to help you as much as
Yes,
I
I
possibly
love
can.
that.
So why don't you tell
Thank
people
you.
right now where they can find you on social, how they can connect with you,
Mhm.
and what is the best
Mhm.
way to stay up to
Mhm.
date with all things Kechi?
Everything. Okay, so yeah, you can find me on pretty much every social media platform out there. Instagram is where I am most active on, and Facebook. Both of them actually are the most I guess you would get the most current information about me and what I'm doing on Instagram and Facebook. So you can find me on Instagram as Kechi Official, Facebook as Kechi Official as well, Twitter as Kechi. Just if you just type in my name on any of those platforms, you'll find me with my tick mark on all those ones. And then I'm also on TikTok, which has been a new thing for me, and very, very fun because all I do there is sing. So find me there as Kechi Okwuchi. I have my website, catchyofficial.com, which is where I update everyone on like my music, my book that's coming out in March next year, and just knowing where to get those things, the links you can pre-order on my website. Like it's all there basically. Yeah. So yeah, please, just follow me, and I hope that what you see is encouraging in some way. So yeah.
I'm sure it will be. And listen, I'm going to make sure that I have all the links for the listener right now to easily go and click and be able to find you. I'm going to make sure when I post on social media
Thank
so people
you.
can see this episode is live, I'm going to tag you so people hopefully can just go boom, click on the handle and go hit that follow button.
Yes.
But I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey with me, with all of us, because it is so powerful, so encouraging. And honestly, there's a lot that you've shared with me that gives me a lot to think about. And so just thank you so much for your beautiful insight. And I can't wait for the day that when we form our little group, you and I, you're singing, I'm
Our
dancing,
little duo.
because
I love it.
I'm going to end this podcast, this episode on saying on this positive note where you gave me 70-30% chance. And I'm just going to bank on that. I'm not even going to try to like mess it up to where you're like, oh, well, man, maybe 60-40. Because I might put my foot in my mouth. So I'm just going to leave this episode on 70-30 and can't wait till we see each other in person, give each other a big hug, and then,
Yes.
entertain the audience. But thank you so much, love, for being on here and just talking to me. And just thank you for your willingness to be vulnerable, because I know that's hard. And it's a challenge to every day show up in that capacity, but you did it, you're doing it. And for that, I just thank you. And I'm blessed and honored to call you a friend. So thanks again. And we'll do this again.
Yes, JR. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been such a pleasure. And yeah, thank you. Can't wait to until you have me again on here.
Blessings, love.